January the 29th. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon, so not that late. And this is what I consumed to create this January and what inspired me. What inspired me to create? Whether or not I've created, I think, is the bigger question. I've been busy and I've been lazy. But to get started, let's talk about books, and then we'll talk about videos, and then we'll talk about articles. Books. This is the biggest one. The Paris, not the biggest physically, but the biggest book that inspired me, the Paris Review. I haven't read it all, but what I have read that really stuck with me is Eve Babbitt's diaries, which part of it is published in here. And I think I said this in the last video that I love Eve Babbitt's. Yeah, it continues in this. I think Eve Babbitt's is so interesting. I love the way she writes. The way she crafts sentences is so fascinating to me. Like, how do I say this? Like, I envy it. I want to be able to write a sentence the way she writes a sentence. Her diaries are so honest, and they're so funny, and they're so sad. And they capture her life, I think. Well, I can't say for sure because she can't tell us, but for me, it feels like they capture her life. She names people, she even makes lists of people's names who do stuff and don't do stuff. I think that's a lot of fun. You know, I think it's a sign to take your writing a journal less seriously. I think she even says that at the beginning of this. She says, "This is the second diary I've started in a month. This time I decided to get an actual book instead of writing on pieces of paper that fall all over the place. I started this because I read Virginia Woolf's diary and, undaunted, decided what the hell. The other diary, by the way, the one on the loose papers, was enormously pretentious too, so this one I'll try and make better." And I think lots of people, well, I've never read anyone else's diary, but I think there is like always that feeling that it's going to be too pretentious. I think there's this idea that everyone is too pretentious or no one's pretentious enough. Maybe we should just all write how we feel and how we think and it'll be perfect. Next thing I read, well, not read, War and Peace. I'm meant to be reading a chapter a day. I'm 10 days behind. I'm on chapter 19. Busy, busy life, lazy, lazy life. I've read part of this before. I think I've got a bit further than this, so this is just a recap for me. Whether or not it's inspired me, I guess, is a different question, but it's good, it's interesting. There's lots of stories, I feel like, all captured in this one book. Very interesting. I don't have much to say, obviously, because I am not that far in. As long as I catch up on my 10 chapters, I can get it done by the end of the year. And lastly, the final thing I've read, well no, actually there's 2 more things I've read, but the final thing I have a physical copy of is this, which is not technically a book, and more so should be in the article section. More so? I don't know why I said that. Should probably be in the article section. This is the London Review of Books. My dad very kindly got me this subscription for 6 months as a treat. I'm selecting articles I find interesting. A lot of them are historical, which I feel like I don't necessarily feel that drawn to. An article I've been reading is this one, Yeats, Auden and Eliot. And I've never heard of Auden before now. Auden or Donne? I don't know. But Yeats I studied when I was 17. I wrote about post-colonialization, something like that, colonialization, something like that in Yeats. And Eliot, in my last video about reviewing what I've consumed, I actually talked about Eliot because I love The Wasteland. I love The Wasteland, but this is very interesting. I haven't finished it. Don't spoil it for me, this article. I think I've got like a page and a bit left. I also read one on Xi Jinping and his dad. Not really my cup of tea. I don't really read a lot of history, but it's important to read what you don't know. So I read it. I read a poem in here. That's what's really important. I read a poem in here and it made me cry almost. It was called Out of All Cure by Lavinia Greenlaw. Lavina. But it went, "Little brother, do you remember the talking? When we thought that life was time and space, and stayed up late to meet the dark with quotations. We were young and had no wisdom of our own. Lost in a mist, I cried out, but I could see nothing. The air cleared when I heard your voice. Then open your eyes. The last time we spoke, we allowed our true subject had always been death, the unending, we described in terms of law and dimension, as if it were some kind of shell. This we found consoling. The smaller existence, the smaller its ending. Perhaps what really brought us peace was thinking side by side. I look at your death, precipitous, continuous, unrealised. I found it so sad. You know, especially the little brother bit. As someone with a little brother. The final thing I read, which I don't have, is Richard III. Whether or not it inspired me, time will tell, but I did find it interesting. I took lots of notes. I actually made a video about reading Richard III all in a day. But like, sometimes I feel like I have quite a mixed feeling about Shakespeare and whether or not I like it, and this one I actually felt like I did like. Here, this is going to be videos and then we'll do articles afterwards. Videos I watched 5 videos that I thought would be worth talking about. Many I thought I wouldn't be worth talking about. First of all was the psychologist versus child videos. I don't know if anyone's seen them. I thought that they were so sweet, I thought they were so funny, I thought they were so interesting, and I thought the child was so clever and so well spoken that if I could be that well spoken, life could be going a lot better for me. She had many, many thoughts. The child had this idea that what is nothing, because nothing is still something, which I told my dad and he thought was quite a silly idea because nothing is nothing. He had a better reason than that. But I thought what the child was saying, that even by acknowledging nothing it becomes something, so nothing is really nothing. Do you get it? That, I was like, that's really interesting, and just also a really interesting like thought from a child. She had lots of thoughts about colours, like what colour is nothing. I suppose children are, or are we all very drawn to colours? I was going to say I suppose children are. I guess you associate the colours with children, primary colours. Next up, a just complete change from that video. And there are more of the psychologist and the child, I just haven't got around to watching them. But yeah, definitely worth a watch, definitely very interesting and funny. Next, there is this video. It's a short film called Aftermath by Jeremy Robbins. And we were told to watch it for our my script writing module, but I thought it was really good, basically. I just thought it was really good and really interesting and very sad, and I think in short films it can be difficult to attach yourself to a character because they can seem a little underdeveloped, but I thought the characters seemed quite developed even though we didn't spend much time with them. I thought that was a really great thing, and that just made me think, how do you do that? The next, again, another switch. This is more of like a pop culture-y one. I don't know how people feel about pop culture videos. It was called Get Undressed or Irrelevant. It was about the sexualisation of young women and the clothes they wear. And I hesitate to say this in case it comes off very conservative. Like, it's not so much that their clothes are revealing, was what the video creator was arguing, I think. I watched this quite a while ago. More so, like, why are they wearing it and whether they want to wear it. There's lots of young pop stars out there, and it's not like, oh, they're setting a bad impression on young people. It's more so this idea that, are they comfortable in that? And these big companies that own these pop stars are putting them in these clothes, and why are they doing that? And is it really just for them? And who are the audience that are receiving this? I think it's a lot to think about. How the Brown University shooting changed my life. I watched this because I go to university in England and I've never really worried about shooting because there are not as many guns here. I can imagine how scary it would be. Well, I can try and imagine, obviously I don't know for sure. And the girl in the video, she had an outside perspective. She wasn't involved in the shooting, she wasn't close by, but it was just this waiting and the not knowing that was so scary in the video, which, you know, the day after she said it snowed and Usually you'd go out there in the snow, but no one wanted to because of such an awful thing that had happened. And it was almost Christmas time. And they were finishing their exams. I just think, isn't it awful? And the final video I watched is like quite polarising to that. Was called Summer in the South of France. And it really was just this girl showing us around her summer home in France, and it was beautiful. And it was calm, and it reminded me of my holidays in France. The house was beautiful, and it was empty, but it was not empty. I don't know how to explain it, but the house was just so nice, and the sun. Gosh, I'm jealous of the sun, especially in an English winter. I was just looking at this idea of the way that the public perceive women who read smut. A lot surrounding this idea of misogyny and just like this shame that goes on the internet, especially for people who read like book talk books or people who don't read book talk books. There was another article I read called Literary It Girls versus Book Talkers, and to me it seemed like they were saying whatever you read and however you portray yourself as reading, someone's always going to have a problem with it. And I guess that's true, like whatever you read. When you look online, you have people who read different things and they portray themselves to an extent as reading these things, and they always get hated for it no matter what. So like, doesn't really matter, you know, if you're not harming anyone, doesn't really matter. I'm not talking about books. I read Breaking. UK intelligence just gave the world a stark warning. We're on the precipice of war. And I read this, then I watched Years and Years. And it just made me really angry, actually. There's a lot of awful things going on in the world, and I feel like I'm not doing enough to show how I feel. I wrote about this actually in my blog, which you can read, that I don't feel like I'm doing enough, and I don't feel like anyone's doing enough, and we spend a lot of time sitting around talking about how awful the world is, but we don't really do anything. Most of us don't really do anything, and that makes me really angry, and that's something that I want to change, because life is so unfair. But just saying life is so unfair doesn't mean anything. It's not a good thing to say, because it's a useless thing to say, and that makes me angry. And the final article I read was the Nowhere Girl Travel Guide to Transylvania. Nowhere Girl is like Dakota Warren, who is a YouTuber and an author and a poet who has a Substack, and it was about her trip to Transylvania basically. But I found it very interesting. She went with her partner, you can assume, and the way she writes about not just like being in Transylvania, even though Transylvania seemed like a lovely place. Actually, I never thought of this in Transylvania, but now I'm thinking about it. But also just this like idea of seeing someone who you love, being with someone who you love in a different place. That was quite beautiful, so I would recommend reading that if you're looking for something beautiful and interesting to read, because I also think her writing style is quite interesting as well. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching what I read in January. I'll see you next month for what I read in February. I hope you're all okay. Keep creating, keep, you know, looking out to the world and thinking, and everything you read and everything you watch, I think we should be thinking about it, and we shouldn't just be reading it and thinking, yes, that's right, or yes, that's wrong. I think that's a mistake that we make sometimes. Read critically, you know, don't just read and take the information in. Think, do you actually think that? That's my advice. Okay, see you next month where I will have read 3 or 4 more Shakespeare plays, so I'll have many more to report back on and which one was my favourite. Bye bye!